So today was the culmination of such a long journey that started on July 4th, 2022, when I was shot in the pelvis with my husband and my daughter at the parade. Today, I was able to hear Judge Rossetti sentence him, I'm not going to use his name, to 50 years for my attempted murder. And while I don't have closure, it's closing a chapter on this part of our lives. And I don't have to think about him anymore. I don't have to worry about him anymore. And me and my husband and my daughter can continue to move forward, and I can continue to heal. And we can focus on ourselves. We don't have to focus on him any longer.
Did you want to see him here? Or?
You know, I was here in June of last year when he pulled his stunt with the plea. I saw him then. You know, would it have been nice that he wouldn't have been a coward and would have shown up? Sure. But at the same time, wasn't surprised at all. And regardless of whether he was there or not, this was going to happen. So, you know, I don't need to see his face. I know what he looks like. I watched the videos with the confession. That was enough to see how cavalier he was about murdering 7 people and injuring 48 others and trying to destroy a community that he didn't destroy. Highland Park is resilient, and he didn't get what he wanted at the end of the day. He hurt a lot of people, but we're all here, and we're going to mourn those that we lost, and they're always going to be in our hearts and our minds. But at the end of the day, he's the loser. He's going to prison for the rest of his life, and we're never going to have to see him again.
How comforting was it to see the judge give all the max sentences, really make a statement in all of her comments throughout this?
It was really comforting to see how how well the state's attorney's office really laid out what he did and why he deserved those maximum sentences. And it was vindicating hearing that 50 years and hearing those life sentences, even though the life sentences at least were going to be mandatory, given what happened.
Was it cause you distress some of the other families and people distress? Was one thing about he's coming to the courthouse and he may or may not say something.
Yeah, I mean, it was stressful. You know, anytime you get a wrench thrown into your plans, it's going to be stressful. But, you know, again, at the same time, the way that he's tried to exert control throughout this entire process has been to try to throw these wrenches in the works, whether it's representing himself and going back to his lawyers, or saying he's going to plea and not going to plea, or not showing up to court. You know, the Judge Rossetti made it very clear to him that this was going forward with or without him. When that happened today, you know, did it give me a little bit of anxiety? Absolutely. But the nice thing is that we were there together as a group, and we were there to support each other and move through it, because we knew, regardless of whatever antics he was trying to pull, that this was going to go forward and he was going to get this sentencing regardless.
I know there was some discussion among some of the folks if he did appear to turn the back.
No, I'm not sure that I heard that or not. Yeah, I didn't hear that specifically. You know, people are angry and frustrated, and I think that, you know, everyone's going to have a little bit of a different response.
Liz, can you just speak to what it was like being in a room full of neighbors and how you were able to comfort each other for the last 2 days?
That was just a really big part of how we're able to get through this. You know, immediately after the shooting, the support of our community, the support of people that, you know, we didn't even know, was so important. We joked that, you know, my daughter was 3 at the time, and just the number of just stuffed animals and toys sent to the house for her. We had to ration so she wouldn't think that there was, a Christmas in July. And it's amazing how, you go through something traumatic like this and how it builds these relationships and these friendships with people who you might not otherwise ever get to know or ever cross paths with. And while it's traumatic and while we're all in a club that none of us ever wanted to be in, you do get that comfort, because while it feels like there's a mass shooting every day in this country, it's still a small group of us that have each other to lean on. And it makes all the difference in the world for something like this.
Do you see, you mentioned this is the end of this part of the journey. Does the next journey include keeping in touch with any of those people?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I've developed relationships with a few of the other victims and survivors that are, really lovely, wonderful people, and we all, for the most part, still live in the community. So it's not just getting together; it's running into each other at the grocery store, or or grabbing coffee and doing those things, or even being for each other, as we continue down our paths of healing as well, because it doesn't stop today. I have this today because just having more pain the past few days. This courthouse is huge, doing a lot of walking, and so I needed my cane more, and that's going to continue to happen. And it's nice to have folks who you can text or you can call and just be like, yeah, God, this was crappy, and they get it.
How has your recovery been? I mean, how has it changed your life in the day-to-day work?
I was shot in the pelvis and had significant tissue and nerve damage as a result. And it's given me really chronic pain. And the tissue damage, has impacted really just the way that my left leg is able to move. So I deal with pain every day. The intensity of it changes. I'd say one of the big pieces for me is I had surgery in November of 23 where I had a dorsal root ganglion stimulator placed on my spine, which does neuromodulation to try and help with the pain, and that helped immensely. I'm able to bounce back more quickly than I used to, which has been great. But at the same time, I have a now 6-year-old, and I can't run. I can't, if I'm in a lot of pain, I can't get down on the ground and play dolls with her. It means that my husband has to take on other responsibilities just because I'm physically unable to do it. I told the story that, for a long time I had to have an exercise step next to my bed to be able to get in and out because it was too high and my body wasn't able to do that. And finally, a few months ago, I just said, I'm sick of this. Let's go out and get some new furniture. And now I have a lower bed, and it's great, and it helps, and I can get in and out, and it's just weird things like that you wouldn't think could make such a difference that do.
People have talked a lot about sort of moving forward from today after this trial is over. I guess for you tonight, what do you do after a trial like this and then July 4th?
Tonight, honestly, we're probably just gonna sit on the couch and watch TV. I don't know. I can't imagine there being a whole lot. Our daughter's gonna come home from school and she might want to color or hang out or, go and ride her bike outside, and, that's probably gonna be the extent of it. But moving forward from here, it's, jumping back into life. I'm gonna, take a beat to really take care of myself. Past couple of days have just been really, really draining. and then it's, it's back to work, it's back to life. Life doesn't stop just because something like this happens. And that's what we deal with. We haven't really decided exactly what we're going to do for the third 3-year mark, of the shooting. The past couple of years, we've gone up to Wisconsin and have been in the middle of the North Woods, away from everyone. So we'll see what we're up to, what we're up for now, and go from there.
Are you going to tell your daughter what happened here today?
Yeah, we've been talking with her about it. It was nice because, with school and getting to the courthouse early enough, we had to do some logistics changes and drop her off at her best friend's house. And she was more excited about getting to have breakfast with her best friend than anything else over the past couple of days. But she knows about it. She knows that there's the bad man that hurt mommy. And she knows that he was going to go to jail for the rest of his life and he wasn't going to hurt anybody else anymore. But, she's just so empathetic. I talked to her about that, and her concern was, whether or not he'd still get to have birthday parties in prison because she's a kid, and, those are the things that are important, and just the level of empathy for someone who she knows. We call him the bad man. It's just, she amazes me every single day. With everything that she's been through. Thank you all. Thank you.
Just to understand that she wants him to be able to have birthday parties?
Yeah, not that she wants him, but she doesn't understand the concept of prison and the idea that you just have everything taken away from you like that. It just, to a certain extent, I think feels cruel to her, and yeah, birthday parties are important. Birthday parties are fun. For her, that means, oh my goodness, he's having all the fun taken away. He says, yeah, he's having all the fun taken away. She was okay. But no, she knew we were coming here yesterday and today. We talked with her about it. But it's safety. So, all right. No problem. Thanks all. Nice to see you.
You've been very vocal throughout this entire process. What's today mean to you? See it come to a close.
It is the close of a very difficult chapter, and hopefully, I just hope that everyone who has been affected by this is going to begin that road to healing, like real closure, because he is not ever going to walk free again.
And what has this been like with your neighbors? What does that healing look like going forward from now? What does it look like the past 2 years getting to this point?
I think we've just all held our breath just to make sure that he would never ever be free again. And now that that's happened, it's like we can exhale, and knowing that he will not be free.
Talk a little bit about the gun reform measures that you've been pushing for and traveling and speaking about and kind of what's next.
Yeah, I definitely know deep down that the only way to prevent future mass shootings, the only way to prevent any of these tragedies is through passing gun safety legislation. But we also have to change the way that we talk about mass shootings. We currently have all mass shootings under one umbrella, and not all mass shootings are the same. So I've been working with Representative Seth Moulton from Boston on a bill that would change the way we talk about mass shootings and charge mass shooters, some of them differently, depending on the caliber of or the type of weapon and the location where the mass shooting happened. We are looking at creating a bill or a law that would make these automatic terrorism charges. This is domestic terrorism. When someone walks into a school with an AR-15 and murders children and intends to murder as many as they can, or they open fire in a movie theater or a grocery store, they are committing domestic terrorism. They are overwhelming our first responder systems. They are disrupting our economy. They're putting an extraordinary financial impact on everybody, between people who have lost their lives, their families, people who are injured, and even people who just witness these incidences. They are carrying a horrible, financial impact, and it's time for us to call this what it is. These kinds of mass shootings are domestic terrorism.
What do you hope to accomplish with that? He was sentenced to 7 life sentences today. What would you hope that domestic terrorism charge would do?
Well, there's a couple things. First, with all mass shootings being under one umbrella, this would make a distinction so that in marginalized communities where they have mass shootings much more frequently, because they're differentiated between a mass shooting like ours, they would get more focused data, more focused solutions for those communities instead of this being one big umbrella. Also, I spoke with somebody from the Parkland shooting, and their shooter is in jail reading fan letters, eating good food. Somebody who has a federal domestic terrorism charge would go to a supermax prison where they would spend most of their time in solitary confinement. They would be eligible for the death penalty. And it's time for us to hold these shooters accountable as with the fullest extent of the law that we can.
When you talk about the death penalty there, was there any, interest or push from yourself or other people to try and get something like that?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Did you never imagine being in this role, being so vocal about certain legislation? Why did you want to do that, and how was that?
I think it was very frustrating to me to see that it's a case by case basis. The feds get to decide who gets a terrorism charge, and looking into what shooters have gotten this kind of charge, it's literally a case by case basis. Like the Parkland shooter didn't, but another school shooter did, and this is domestic terrorism. We have to start calling that. We have to start charging shooters, for what this is, which is terrorism. We walk around it and we don't talk about it for what it is, and it's time to change that. And so I just started talking to lawmakers about the possibility of doing this bill, and Rep. Moulton he's going to introduce it soon.
Did you learn anything yesterday with some of the video that was shown that maybe you didn't know from the interrogation at all, or no? Was there anything that you walked away like, wow, I didn't know that?
I did not know that he had been planning it for so many years. I did not know that he had taken a moment to decide if he was going to do it. I did not. There were a lot of things that I learned about that. Yeah.
Has anything about the trial changed how you sort of think about this drive you've been going for, or has that kind of stayed consistent?
I definitely, seeing that he didn't get that terrorism charge definitely changed my opinion about our judicial system. And also, right now I really call on Pam Bondi to look at these kinds of mass shootings and charge them appropriately. She should be charging the FSU shooter with terrorism. I don't know any other way to describe what these people are doing other than that.
Actually, one last thing.
Yeah.
Crimo behaving erratically,
Mm-hmm.
of course, pre-trial. And then once there was a confusion on what's happening and the sentencing was halted, what were you thinking at that point? Were you worried like, oh my God, here we go again with his antics?
Yeah, I think all of us were sort of in shock. We were concerned he was going to come to court. Clearly he did not, but this tracks for him and his behavior throughout this process.